Hello, I'm Chris Casey.
And I'm Kristen Lagana. Welcome to Arundel County Week in Review. In this episode, we'll meet a mom that is stepping up to fight teenage drug use and look at efforts to increase public access to the water. But first, making headlines this week. Congratulations to the Mustangs of Meade High School for bringing home the first state basketball championship Anne Arundel County has seen in 15 years. Meade put an 80-45 whooping on the Barons of Bethesda, Chevy Chase, led by junior Josh Qualls and senior Bruce Spruill. With team scoring leader Tristan Easton on the bench in foul trouble, almost every player on the floor scored a basket. The road to the championship was very exciting. Meade finished with a 26-2 record and won 25 of their last 26 games. Their calling card was defense. They held the Barons from Montgomery County to only 5 points in the first quarter. Great job by the players, the coaches, and the student cheering section. This is like our own local March Madness, Chris. By the way, did you fill out your bracket yet?
See, here's the thing about basketball.
Okay.
I just don't follow it. I don't watch it. And, I think I'm holding on to a lot of aggression because when I was younger, I wasn't 6'3" like I am now.
I was going to say, didn't you play basketball?
And I played basketball intramural, but then I realized once I got to high school, my lack of coordination didn't really go together with basketball well. So I ran for the momentum. Can't mess it up too much. But how about you? Are you into basketball?
I did. It was actually the only sport that I played. And man, is that good conditioning. If I could run the way that I did sprints back then and suicides, oh my goodness, it is quite the conditioning sport. And I was a power forward, but I had to stop because I dislocated my shoulder a couple times. And that's very painful.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I had to take it easy on the court.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll play some one-on-one sometime.
Oh gosh, no, don't give Dave any ideas on future topics.
Well, as much as I'd like to look forward to that, we have more news to get to. So next week, we have a big event coming up that no parent should miss. It's a town hall meeting on heroin abuse called Not My Child. This should be a great event, and it's also the first time the county will be streaming an event live online. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The town hall will be moderated by our county executive, Steve Shue, and will feature remarks by a Pasadena native who grew up here and fell into drug addiction that's landed him in jail. He has a powerful story to tell. There will also be a panel of experts, including a parent struggling with this issue, healthcare professionals, and our chief of police, Tim Altameri. Of course, there will be many ways to participate. You can attend the event in person. It will be held at the Paschal Center for Performing Arts on Wednesday, March 25th at 6 p.m. Members of the public can browse through booths outside the auditorium to find resources and information from local providers. Then at 7 p.m., the program will begin. Questions will be taken from the audience and also from Twitter. So just tweet your question to @AACountyGOVT, AA County Government, with the hashtag #StopHeroin, and we will try to get it answered.
Wow, hashtags and a Twitter account.
Hashtags and a Twitter account. We're really coming up into the 21st century here.
Yeah, this is crazy.
So make sure you get out there, and if you can't make it to the event, make sure you tweet your questions in and watch it live, because whether you're informed on this issue or you know nothing about this issue, it's going to be a good event.
Yeah, it really does sound like it, and I'm very much looking forward to our interview later in the program, because this is definitely a topic that we're looking to tackle right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, speaking of town hall meetings, there is one more coming up the day after the heroin town hall to preview the county budget. This will be the third and final meeting that gives citizens a chance to tell the county executive what their priorities are. We stopped by the first meeting last week in Annapolis, and here's a clip of what happened.
Okay, the Anne Arundel County budget, general fund budget, is about $1.3 billion. That's the size of this animal. It's a pretty sizable organization, close to 4,000 employees. Where the money comes from, nearly half, 46%, comes from property taxes.
Now, the next meeting will be at North County High School in Glen Burnie, located at 10 East 1st Avenue. It starts at 7 p.m.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk to Ann Youngblood, a local parent who has experienced the heroin epidemic firsthand. Take a look at our community calendar for events around town, but don't go away. We'll be right back.
doesn't see race. Love is love.
Welcome back. A recurring topic here on Week in Review has been that about the fight against heroin abuse and substance abuse, and it is definitely a main topic for our new administration. We've heard from the police, we've heard from counselors, and joining us today is a parent who's dealt with this topic firsthand. This is Ann Youngblood. Ann, thank you for being on the show. It really is a brave effort on your part. Can you share with us your story?
Yes. I lost my son Lance in July of 2014. He was 20 years old to a heroin overdose. We started with this about probably when he was around 14. We found out he had possession of marijuana. He was distributing. It then moved to prescription pain meds. We didn't keep them in our house, but he was definitely getting them. We just saw a change in his personality. He grew very aggressive, defensive. He was a different person. He used to be this smiling, happy child, and he turned into just a distant person that we didn't really know anymore. When he was younger, he was into sports, played football, wrestling. He excelled at all of that. Just absolutely wonderful. Just a very loving, normal child. He had behavioral issues, which we addressed. He would get in trouble in school. Didn't like authority too much. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. So we got him into therapy. He would see a counselor in school once a week. Never diagnosed with anything. Never diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, nothing like that. We had him in private counseling. Still, no diagnosis, nothing to say, this is what's going on, this is why we're having all these behavioral issues, phone calls. But he was intelligent. He would do well in school. He had lots of friends, very well liked. And it changed. It's like I said, so we noticed with the marijuana, then with the narcotics, the prescription pain meds. And then about a year before he passed away, we started noticing spoons missing. I could just see a physical change in him. He just didn't look healthy. He was thin, he was pale, he was just getting sick. I remember going out for his birthday, and it was his 20th birthday. And he kept going into the bathroom, and one morning my husband was taking him to work and noticed he was just falling asleep. So he spoke to him and he said, "Are you using heroin?" And at first he denied it. And then he kept talking to him, and then he finally said, "Yes, I am. I've been using it now for about probably, I think it was almost a year." We got him into rehab. He was in rehab a few times. He would do well. Then he'd come back, and it was only a 28-day program. 28-day program is just not enough. He'd get back to hanging out with the same friends and right back on the same path. He went away. He would go out of state to live with his father, and he again would do well. He had quit school in 11th grade because things were just getting worse, and he wasn't doing well in school. Not as far as like grades, just as far as staying in school and paying attention and doing what he needed to do. So when he went away, he got his GED, got his driver's license. We enrolled him in college classes. He comes back home, was probably good for quite a few months, doing very well, working. And then just right back down the same path. It's something that is always there. It's always in his head. He's always wanting. It is a disease. And there's some underlying issue of why these kids are going out there using. Sometimes it's recreational, but it's majority of the time there's something else going on. And I think it was with his behavioral issues that there was something underlying that made him get started with using these prescription meds and the heroin. And you use them once or twice and you're hooked. It's that. So, right before
You had actually touched on off the cameras before when we were discussing this, was that Lance was actually in several groups. He wasn't associated with one certain type of group in a high school. He was the jock. He was into sports. He was even into his studies. He was hanging out with a bunch of different kinds of people.
Lance was very well liked. He had a lot of friends, and he would change groups of friends very often. And we noticed that too, that he would change groups of friends a lot. And I was always concerned about that. And then we would have friends that would say, they really liked Lance, but because of what he was doing, they had to tell him, I can't be your friend. I can't go down the same path as what you are. And he would say to them, I understand, and I don't want you to go down the same path as me. I want you to do well. And he would understand. But he was very, very well liked. Always had friends. And so, right before he passed, he was at his best. He was doing so well, healthy, looked good. He was working. He was living in a recovery house, which I think is very important. I think that is one of the steps that if you are an addict, you come out of rehab, you need to go into a recovery house because they do support each other. They have curfews, they have rules, they are tested, and they have to abide by all this. They have responsibility. They have to have a job because they need to pay for their rent. We would help him in any way we can, but that was a way of telling him, you need to become an adult, you need to be responsible for yourself, and he was. And then he decided it was time for him to move out. I didn't think he was ready, but it was up to him, and he did move out. And he started missing his meetings. He went out one night, and he was drinking. Friends tell me he wasn't drinking to the point where he was intoxicated, drunk. He was just drinking. But that night, he made a poor decision. And I got the phone call the next morning that he had passed. And it was ruled as fentanyl and alcohol intoxication that took him.
And that right there speaks volumes about how real this problem is in our county. This is not someone coming from Baltimore City that's homeless on the streets doing heroin. This is not an alcoholic that makes a jump over to heroin. These are people my age and younger and high school age kids. And the biggest problem that I see, you see, when we go out through the county and we try to explain the scope of this problem, so that way we can get people on board with the solutions to this problem. Mm-hmm. It's the stigma and denial. Mm-hmm. It's flat out denial that this is as prevalent as it is, and it's a stigma that if you're a drug addict, it is your fault and you're on your own to deal with it. How do we fight that?
People need to take the blinders off and see that that is not the case. I mean, these people, they don't want to be addicts. They may go out and experiment and think, okay, I can conquer it. I mean, I'm better than, my words I'm trying to say. I can control this, as you were saying before. I can keep it under control. I can try this and I'm going to be fine. But it's not that. It's you try it, you do it a couple of times, and it takes over. And people need to understand that it isn't someone who isn't educated, someone who is at a poverty level. It is your next door neighbor, like you said, it's your children. And these children don't understand that. Children think that they think they're invincible. They think that they don't think of the consequences. They don't think of what could happen. And we were open with Lance. We spoke to him about all of this. We were always open from the beginning with our kids about drugs. And we told him there was a report many months ago about this fentanyl mixed with the heroin that was taking lives. And we were open about that. We talked to him. And he was well aware of all of it. But they don't think about that.
Yeah. And they don't think about the actions, what their actions can do to those around them either. So
No.
They think they're invincible. They also don't consider the family and friends that are affected by their issue.
And it does affect the family a lot. It affects the family. I mean, the addict is dealing with the issues. If they go through the withdrawals or the urge that they need it, they're going through all of that, of where they're going to get the money to pay for. The family goes through all of it. I mean, I worried every day. We had to make a decision to ask him to leave the house because we were afraid for our family because of people coming to the house. And
I can imagine as a parent how that feels. And you did everything in your power to help Lance. And when I'm out in the community, like last night, for example, I had someone saying, it's the parents' fault. If I see someone overdose, I'm just gonna leave them there on the street. And I had to correct them. And I said, good parents only can go so far. And there is a decision that is made at a certain point in time that starts them down that path, and it's so hard to turn around. And you're not going to see someone overdose on the street. Odds are you're going to have someone knocking on your front door saying, can you call 911? My daughter just overdosed. I never even knew she was on drugs. The reality of heroin abuse in this county is absurd.
It is. And you have people who don't care, that maybe they want to live their life that way, that they don't see any other way. And then you have the people, I've gone to the NA meetings and I've listened to these people talk, and they're normally, the age is like teens to their 20s, and they don't want to live this life.
Yeah.
They want to beat it. They want to live a productive life. They want people to understand, and that's the biggest issue, is that stigma where people don't understand and people don't want to talk about it because they're ashamed if they do have someone in their family that they're dealing with this. And there's no reason to be ashamed at all. And that's why I want to tell my story, because I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of my son. My son was a great person. Sorry. He was a wonderful person, and he didn't want to live like this. And he was trying to do better, and he was helping other people. And I want to carry that on, and I want to help other people, and that is the biggest thing. We need to talk about this. We need to get it out in the open because it is affecting everyone.
And there is no shame in seeking help for an addiction.
There is no shame.
The only shame is that it comes from those that put that stigma on addicts. And if you're an addict, if you know an addict, there are ways to get help. And I know you have a special project that you're a part of, Mariah's Mission.
Yes. Mariah's Mission Fund is a 501c fund that I have started with another mother, Valerie Albee, that I met through a bereavement group, and she lost her daughter, Mariah, almost 3 years ago, September, and same thing, to a heroin overdose. And we started this, she actually started the fund in November of 2014, and I met her in the group, and then I joined her probably the following month I joined. And we're both just working together to raise money to support the resources that are needed, because there isn't support out there. There aren't funds to support this. I mean, there's barely any resources. It's hard to find a center to put your child in. There aren't enough resources out there. The resources that are out there right now, it's like a 28-day program. That's barely enough time to treat an addiction of heroin. These need to be long-term. It needs to be at least probably a 3-month program. And then after that, they need to consistently be in counseling. They need methadone, I don't really feel is the right decision. Methadone is, you go on this methadone and it seems like you're on it for the rest of your life. It's like, why cover one drug with another drug? But back to the fund. So Valerie and we go to our local businesses, we go to anyone that we could possibly find to support us, to either donate monetary, or we are having a silent auction in April 25th in Easton, and the name of our auction is Silent No More, because that's our goal. We don't want to be silent about this anymore. We want to speak out. We want people to know. We want to educate people.
What are the goals behind Mariah's mission?
We want to, like I said, collect funds that then we can distribute to the resources that need it. We want to educate. We want to erase the stigma. We want to support groups. Any resource that is possibly needed, we want to be able to distribute those funds to them so they can help these people.
Most importantly, you want to communicate. You
And
want
communicate.
everyone to talk about this
Yes.
issue. And you have named, obviously, heroin is the greatest issue here, but we have also discussed in this interview marijuana, prescription drugs, alcohol. So these are all things that can lead you down a darker, deeper path. So absolutely, we want everyone to go out there and please try and donate your time, your efforts, communicate about this topic. Look up the information on Mariah's Mission, which we're going to show you the websites here. And what are those? www.
Mariah's Mission, we have a Facebook page, which is Mariah's Mission Fund. And we have a email address.
Okay.
Is Mariah's Mission 2014 @gmail.com.
Okay, and the Facebook
And-
is facebook.com
Yes.
/ Mariah's Mission.
Yes.
Very good.
Mariah's Mission Fund.
Very good. This is so important that you were able to join us today, and we can't thank you enough. We've obviously touched on how education is so important in this fight against addiction, but the biggest and best thing that we can do is communicate about it. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and you're very
you.
brave for
Thank
doing
you.
so. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Week in Review right after this.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Now, anybody who lives here knows about our 500 miles of shoreline and great waterfront communities. Unfortunately, accessing the water can be something reserved for the few who can afford it, but several activists are working to fix that problem. Sarah Gannon talked with members of the Water Access Committee about their work. Sarah.
Thanks, guys. I'm here today with the Water Access Committee. They were kind enough to sit with the Constituent Services Office to explain what they do. This is Mike Lofton and Lisa Airasmith. Hi, how are you today?
We're good.
Wonderful.
We're good.
Can you explain to me and to the audience what the Water Access Committee does?
Sure. The Water Access Committee is an organization of citizens, special water activity groups like board sailors, kayakers, kayak fishermen, and the like. And we've come together over the last couple of years to address a pretty serious problem in Ann Arundel, and that's the extreme difficulty in actually getting to the water. It's very limited. The National Park Service says bay-wide, only 2% of the bay shoreline is available to the public, and I don't think we're that good here in Ann Arundel, so we're working to solve that problem.
Working to solve that problem?
Yep.
And what type of projects do you do?
Large to small. If it connects with the waterfront, we're there. And we're looking at water access for all people. As Mike said, you know, the kayak anglers, the shore fishermen, the people with car top boats, like stand-up paddle boards, or like this generation's bicycle. People with boats on their trailers. They want to find a boat ramp to put in. On the very small level, there's a new project coming online this spring in Downs Park, which is a well-established park on the Chesapeake Bay, bordered by the Chesapeake Bay on one side and Bodkin Creek on the other.
Okay.
On the Bodkin Creek side, there are a series of waterfront picnic spots.
Sure.
And the Department of Recreation and Parks is going to be turning one of those into a soft kayak launch this spring, using existing parking lots, existing toilet facilities, and paved pathway, and it's going to be a very low-cost way of providing really the first public access point on Bodkin Creek.
Wow, that's great. We're making progress.
Yeah, on the large scale, we just broke ground, we, not me, but Department of Public Works and the Department of Recreation and Parks just broke ground on the county's first county-owned public boat ramp, which will be at Fort Smallwood Road.
Yes.
You know that one. We've identified a list of 11, what we call opportunity parks, because the county is literally sitting on a treasure fund of county-owned public property that has accumulated over the last 400 years. On one level, there's Beechwood Park, which is on the north shore of the Magathie. It's a former African American day resort that went out of business, I think, in the late 60s. And the county acquired, I think, 70 acres about 10 years ago, and that will be the first public access point on the north shore of the Magathie River. The Magathie River Association has really worked wonders with that piece of undeveloped parkland.
Great. Now, when do you normally meet your committee?
We usually meet every other month on the second Wednesday of the month. In April, we're going to do something a little different. We're meeting on Wednesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. at Mayo Beach Park, which is, you can find the directions on the County Recreation Parks website. It is also a former beach resort, went out of business in the late 60s, and the county acquired it. Lovely sandy beach, park pavilion and so forth, and that is where that meeting is going to be.
Okay. And are you looking for volunteers?
We absolutely are. We have probably 100 to 150 folks that are actively engaged right now, and many of them are associated with groups like Lisa mentioned, these clubs and organizations, so that our reach is in the thousands now. And we need people to get involved, people who are willing to volunteer to do cleanups, who are willing to go to meetings and talk about this kind of people who are willing to do property research. It's all volunteers. You can do as much or as little as you're motivated to do. So please.
And you have any upcoming events?
Aside from the Water Access Committee meeting, on March 22nd, we are working with Four Rivers Heritage on their Maryland Day events.
Okay.
We're going to have South River Farms Park, which is 170 acres on the South River, South Shore of the South River, open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we're going to be leading guided hikes from at 10:30 and 12:30.
Okay, great.
So people should come out for that.
Is it a free event?
It's a free event.
Free event. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today, and I would like to, when the weather breaks, that we can go out and look at some of these sites together, and we can do like a follow-up.
That would be great.
We'll
We'd
do
love
that.
to do that.
Make sure folks know that we have a Facebook page, Ann Arundel
Thank
Public
you.
Water Access, and we do a pretty good job of keeping that fresh and informative.
Great. Well, thank you again. And back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Sarah. County Executive Shue has made his goal to add free water access points at the north and south sides of each major waterway in the county. Get out your kayak, Chris.
Funny story about kayaks.
Oh, of course there is.
I do some kayaking
Do
myself.
you?
Well, it's not exactly fishing from a kayak, but me and my buddies, we go down to the beach every year. And one of the hobbies we've recently picked up is shark fishing.
Okay.
So what we do is we get a big piece of tuna and we get a big hook about that big and we paddle it out 150, 200 yards into the waves, drop the bait, come back. It's awesome.
It sounds totally awesome.
It is. You catch sharks on the beach. And, I don't want to scare anybody that goes out to the beach. I'm not going to tell you where we fish because you probably swim there. But it's awesome until you flip over and you're in the waves and you got to swim 200 yards back. But that's only happened once.
Well, you know the good way to tell when sharks are coming, right?
When Kristen Lagana runs out of the water.
Yeah, there's that. And of course you hear the music.
Da-dum.
Da-da, da-da-da-da-da. That's when
So-
you know the sharks are coming.
Unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet when we've been fishing, or else I'd hurry up and set the hook. Usually it's more subtle than that, but you do any fishing? Kayaking?
No, I don't, but I will be kayaking in Puerto Rico here very soon. So
Bioluminescent
sadly-
Bay?
Yes, a bioluminescent bay. So sadly, I won't be joining you on Week in Review next week.
Notice the tears streaming
I'll
right
be
now.
thinking of all of you.
And I'm sure we'll have someone filling your seat, and I'm gonna miss you. But fortunately, that's a little bit away, so I got time to.
Right, and you can't wait for me to come back and tell you all the stories I have.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
All right, so tell me the top 3 things I need to pack with me because I am horrible when it comes to the sun. I will guaranteed fry the first day.
Okay.
I know I have to have sunblock.
So you need a sunblock.
Yep.
And you should probably also bring a mask. That's the best thing to keep the sun off your face.
Like a spooky monster mask.
Whatever kind of mask you want.
Saying my face is ugly, Chris.
I don't know. It's you're gonna burn one way or the other.
Yeah,
if you're going
I'm
to Puerto
definitely gonna
Rico
burn.
and you're not
You
trying to get
know
sunburned.
about sun and natural redheads.
I don't. Tell me.
Yeah, us natural redheads, we are so fair and susceptible to sunburns because this is totally natural.
I'm picking up on something here.
No, you're not.
Okay, I'm not. All right. Well, I hope you have fun.
Thank you.
And it's just unfortunate you're not going away this week.
Oh, and it's unfortunate that you're not doing a field report in Puerto Rico.
I think we should set you up for a field report.
I think you're right. I think it could be interesting.
Or at least FaceTime. You know, we can figure it out somehow.
Yeah. I'll see how the government's doing out in Puerto Rico, and we'll record on that. How about that? So I'll need a cameraman with me. Chuck, you up for it? I'm getting thumbs up from the booth.
For it. So I guess that's a trip for two to Puerto Rico.
There you
Why don't
go.
we just move the whole show down there?
Why not?
We can have our feet in the water. And...
Anne Arundel County Week in Review coming at you live from Puerto Rico.
All right. Well, I think we covered it all. You know, it's springtime. That's the overall theme here.
Yes,
We're really happy about it.
Yay!
So, you know, break out the shorts and the board shorts and the
No more blue
surfboards
long
and-
johns.
No more blue long johns.
Yes.
Well, this wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. You can watch this episode and archived episodes online anytime on Facebook, YouTube, or Google Plus by searching Arundel TV. Please tune in again next week for more highlights and news from around the county. We'll see you next time.